Liverpool new boy Alexander-Isak left Cristiano Ronaldo red-faced after phone call request. Liverpool signing Alexander-Isak once snubbed Cristiano Ronaldo's attempt to get him to join Real Madrid with a phone call. Liverpool finally managed to land Isak on transfer deadline day this week by agreeing a £125 million British transfer record fee with Newcastle. The striker had effectively gone on strike to force through a move, with his determination to join the Anfield club proving decisive in his embarking on the next step of his career, after weeks of tension and bitter standoffs with the Magpies. But the 25-year-old has never been afraid to go against the grain or fight for what he believes is the right move for his career. As a teenage prodigy playing for Swedish club AIK, his performances caught the attention of Europe's elite clubs. Liverpool themselves first expressed interest in him as a 16-year-old, according to The Athletic. But Real Madrid, famous for stockpiling the world's brightest talents, thought they had secured his signature after agreeing personal terms. Determined to get him on their books as early as possible, Real even asked legendary forward Cristiano Ronaldo, then still playing at the Santiago Bernabéu, to reach out to a young Isak on FaceTime in an attempt to convince him to join Los Blancos as per the same report. But in a stunning reversal that set the tone for his career, Isak executed a late U-turn, opting instead to sign for Dortmund. Dortmund's reputation for excellent youth development was the deciding factor in them managing to sway the Swede, who chose them at the very last minute. Everyone knows that Borussia is a good club to develop at as a young player because so many of them are in the first team. Isak told 442 at the time. "I want to play here and I am waiting for my chance, and I'll take it when it comes." The brutal snub not only left Real stunned but also highlighted Isak's early willingness to defy expectations and chart his own course, even if it meant upsetting some people along the way. Upon his arrival at the Westfalenstadion, however, tensions arose with manager Thomas Tuchel, who claimed ignorance of the signing, prompting a public apology from Dortmund's bosses. Having hoped for a clear pathway into the first team, Isak struggled for game time due to Dortmund's plethora of attacking options. He made just 12 appearances over the course of 2 seasons with the German Giants, scoring 1 goal. After a loan spell at Willem II in the Netherlands, where he rediscovered his scoring form, Isak sought a permanent move away from Dortmund in 2019. He was sold to Real Sociedad for a modest sum of £7.5 million, but with a caveat: a £26 million buyback clause that gave the Bundesliga giants first refusal should Isak hit the ground running in La Liga. He did exactly that, developing into one of Europe's most exciting forwards with his silkiness on the ball and predatory instincts in front of goal. Taking notice of that, Dortmund tried to re-sign the player, which Isak refused. Sociedad eliminated his buyback clause by paying them an additional £5 million. He went on to score 44 goals in 132 appearances for the Basque side, helping the club win a rare trophy in the form of the Copa del Rey in 2020. With that, reports soon emerged linking him to the Premier League. He and his agents began to signal his desire for a new challenge and, in August 2022, Newcastle shattered their transfer record with a £63 million offer to bring him to St James Park. After nearly 3 years at the club, he now joins Liverpool as one of the world's best strikers. After joining, he said, "It's so exciting. I think it's something difficult to put into words. I think you have to experience it and then explain. I think we all know what Liverpool is about, the fans and what they're about as well. So yeah, looking forward to getting to experience that." Alan Shearer left red-faced with surprised Alexander-Isak claim about Liverpool transfer. Alexander-Isak is set to join Liverpool from Newcastle United on deadline day, but Alan Shearer was left surprised that the Magpies waited until after sanctioning the move to secure a replacement. With Alexander-Isak's Liverpool arrival now looming, Alan Shearer would have anticipated Newcastle securing another striker before allowing the Swede to leave. In a transfer saga that has dominated the summer window, Isak appears poised to depart St James Park for Anfield on deadline day in a deal valued at £125 million. The Swedish forward downed tools to start this Premier League season after expressing his desire to consider other opportunities, and was the subject of a £110 million offer from Liverpool in August. Following 3 years on Tyneside that have concluded in acrimonious circumstances, the striker has his medical scheduled. Eddie Howe's side's focus then shifted to acquiring replacements, with one already secured in Nick Woltemade, who joined from Stuttgart last week for £65 million. The German netted 17 goals across all competitions last season before claiming Player of the Tournament honours at the Under-21 European Championships. Additional attacking prowess was required with the Swede's departure imminent, and Brentford's Jon Wissa looks to be on his way to Newcastle in a deal worth £55 million. Yet, Shearer would have been taken aback by the fact that the Magpies waited until after Isak's exit to make this move. Speaking to Gary Lineker on the Rest is Football podcast, Shearer was questioned about the prospect of Isak's exit. The England icon insisted he would be quite astonished if Isak departed without a second striker being brought in first. "Newcastle haven't got one of the players that they want in," Shearer began, speaking before news of Isak's pending transfer surfaced late on Sunday. "I'd be surprised if Newcastle let him go without getting another forward in." This is precisely what unfolded, with the 25-year-old's medical scheduled and a 6-year contract virtually finalized with Liverpool, before Newcastle had secured the signing Wissa. During Isak's absence, young William Osula had been tasked with carrying the goal-scoring burden. Whilst he did manage to find the net in the club's 3-2 loss to Liverpool last week, Shearer doesn't believe he's quite prepared to be that alternative striker. "He is not ready to lead the line for Newcastle," continued Shearer. "Potential? Yes. Attitude? Absolutely. You can't fault his efforts and everything else, but he's not ready to lead Newcastle in the Champions League and going forward in the league to try and get in a top 5 or top 6 space. His time may come in the future, but he's not ready to start yet. Woltemade, I think he could be a really clever signing," added Shearer, commenting on the latest of Howe's acquisitions. "But it also comes with a risk because ultimately, he's had 7 or 8 months playing good football. He has not scored a lot of goals and has not gotten great experience. Just under £70 million. Newcastle, unfortunately, are always going to have to pay over the limit because there is a Saudi price now, and there might be an Isak price. Other clubs know that Newcastle are on the hunt for a forward, so they were always going to get stung with the price. It could turn out to be really smart signing, but it's a big ask for him to go in and lead the line as Newcastle's number 9. Inside Liverpool deadline day as Alexander-Isak jets off and transfer collapses after tense talks. The inevitable slamming shut of the transfer window at 7 p.m. on Monday evening completed a remarkable 24 hours of activity for Liverpool. The Premier League champions have often prided themselves on steering clear of the madness that afflicts the top flight twice a year, but they found themselves plunked right in the thick of the drama as the 2025 summer window entered its final moments. That was, in part, by design. The Reds had been relaxed all summer about their interest in Marc Guehi, believing the longer they left negotiations, the tougher it would be for Crystal Palace to maintain a hard-line stance given their captain was inside the final 12 months of his deal. It was no surprise that negotiations only really ramped after the season had started in mid-August, but if the £35 million agreement seemed like it was heading for the sort of conclusion many had anticipated back in the early weeks of the window, Guehi's London medical did not lead to the completion of the deal. Having identified Brighton's Julio Igor as the man to succeed Palace's captain Guehi, the emergence of interest from West Ham United threw a claret and blue spanner in the works, leading to the Seagulls' man to have a change of heart and plunge Liverpool's pursuit of the England international into jeopardy. Having maintained a dignified silence while continuing to lead out the FA Cup winners with pride while he awaited developments of his dream move to Anfield, it was hard not to feel sorry for Guehi as he contemplated an 11th-hour breakdown of his switch. Oliver Glasner had made no secret of his insistence that the 25-year-old would only be allowed to leave after a replacement had been signed and after starting the summer with an interest in Sporting South's main Dialman before seeing links to Evan Dika, Manu Akanji and Strahinja Pavlovic. It was clear there was no shortage of effort at Selhurst Park to help facilitate their defender's departure. Part of that, of course, was due to the respect the club have for the man who skippered them to the first major trophy in their history in May's Cup win over Manchester City. But Palace are also a club who are unable to absorb the loss of England internationals whose true value at Selhurst Park exceeds £60 million. That much was made obvious by Chairman Steve Parish in the bowels of Wembley after the penalty shootout win over the Reds in the Community Shield last month. The Eagles' chief was pragmatic in his acceptance that Guehi could not leave as a free agent next summer, but that stance jarred with Glasner's, who has repeated his determination to retain his talisman in recent days. "We had a meeting in March and we had an agreement that we're just selling Marc if we have the right replacement in," Glasner said after Sunday's 3-0 win at Aston Villa. "And we wanted to have this replacement at the beginning of the season, the pre-season, to be independent from this situation." This was July 9th, today is August 31st, there is no replacement in the building. So it is clear that one part of the agreement is not fulfilled, that means we can't sell Marc. And it's not for Oliver Glasner. It's not a gift or a wish for Oliver Glasner. It's necessary for playing a successful season. We had a great start. We are the first-time European football and I think our fans deserve to have the best players available. And no, if we don't sell Marc then Marc will accept it. Because he loves Crystal Palace, he loves the team and we feel the appreciation he has and he also feels the same from his side. For a club usually so adept at avoiding the melodrama of the final moments of the player trading months, the ensuing confusion was quite the departure as claims and counterclaims were made over what would lie in store for Guehi and the biggest move of his career. But within 45 minutes of the deal sheet being submitted to permit an extra 2 hours to secure the terms, the deal had collapsed, with Glasner winning the internal struggle with Parish. Those discussions are said to have been particularly frank as the Austrian remained steadfast in his refusal to countenance the sale of the skipper who led them to the FA Cup, the only piece of major silverware in their history. Glasner reportedly claimed he would quit his job as manager if Guehi was sold, leaving Palace chiefs with the unenviable prospect of having to replace both a cup-winning manager and club captain after the deadline for what was already widely being viewed as a knockdown price of £35 million. For Palace, that trade-off simply wasn't worth it, even if there will be some private sympathy for Guehi's misfortune. Palace were said to have even pieced together an exit video for their outgoing skipper only for the rug to be pulled from the deal at around 7:45 p.m. on Monday evening. Liverpool are expected to return for the England international, and could yet snare him as a free agent at the end of the season should the Londoners demand too high an asking price for someone inside the final 6 months by the time the January window opens. On more stable footing was the British record move for Alexander-Isak, which, having dragged on for weeks, finally reached the end game on Sunday evening when a deal was struck with Newcastle at £125 million. The Sweden international arrived at the AXA training centre mid-morning time to undergo his medical before his in-house media duties with LFC TV. He has since flown out from Liverpool John Lennon Airport to join up with his national colleagues. Having not played since May, the Reds will benefit from Isak featuring prominently for John Dahl Tomassen's side as they face Slovenia and Kosovo in World Cup qualifiers and, given the lack of a real preseason, it might be some time before he is up to the sort of levels that saw him plunder 23 goals for Newcastle last time out. Only Mohamed Salah registered more. For context, the most expensive player in British football history will immediately come in for external scrutiny given the scale of the figures involved and the manner of his acrimonious Newcastle exit, but Liverpool are convinced they are signing one of the finest strikers in world football as his peak years approach. And fittingly, for a player of such brilliance, the 25-year-old is setting his sights immediately on more silverware for Arne Slot as an exciting start to the new term was supplemented by an enormous statement of intent off the pitch. It's a mixture of what the club is building, but what they're building on top of what the club already is, Isak told LiverpoolFC.com. The history of the club. Me getting the chance to be a part of this, I want to create history. I want to win trophies. And fittingly, for a player of such brilliance, the 25-year-old is setting his sights immediately on more silverware for Arne Slot as an exciting start to the new term was supplemented by an enormous statement of intent off the pitch. It's a mixture of what the club is building, but what they're building on top of what the club already is, Isak told LiverpoolFC.com. The history of the club. Me getting the chance to be a part of this, I want to create history. I want to win trophies. If it was Glasner who won the battle with Parish to retain Guehi, then Liverpool can at least lay claim to winning the war with Newcastle. Marc Guehi's stance on failed Liverpool transfer emerges after £35 million deal collapses. Marc Guehi's feelings about a failed move to Liverpool on transfer deadline has emerged hours after the window closed. The Reds made an attempt to bring the Crystal Palace defender to Anfield in the final moments of the summer transfer window. Liverpool made 8 signings during the window, including a deadline day move for Alexander-Isak worth £125 million. Guehi was expected to be the 9th and final new addition to Arne Slot's squad this summer before a deal collapsed in the final hours of the window. A £35 million deal between Liverpool and Palace had been agreed for the England international. However, the move fell through at the 11th hour after the Eagles failed to sign a replacement, despite the Reds submitting a deal sheet in an attempt to get the transfer over the line. As a result, a report from The Guardian has claimed to provide insight into Guehi's feelings about the transfer to Liverpool falling through. It has been claimed that the defender is angry with Palace's decision to stop the move to Anfield, having undergone a medical in London to become a Liverpool player on Monday. The report also claimed that Palace manager Oliver Glasner warned the club that he would resign if Guehi's move to Liverpool was completed. This came after the Eagles missed out on signing Brighton defender Igor Julio, who was viewed as a potential replacement for Guehi. It has also been claimed that Guehi is expected to release a statement following a failed deadline day move to Liverpool. The 25-year-old captained Palace to victory in last season's FA Cup final and scored his first goal of the season in a 3-0 victory over Aston Villa at the weekend. What Real Madrid supporters did after Trent Alexander-Arnold was replaced on La Liga debut. Real Madrid supporters rose for a standing ovation when Trent Alexander-Arnold was substituted on his La Liga debut, but the applause was not directed at the former Liverpool star. The 26-year-old's 20-year association with the Reds came to an end last season before his contract was due to expire at the end of June. Real Madrid paid the Reds £10 million to secure his early release, allowing him to feature for the Spanish side in the Club World Cup, staged across the United States. Alexander-Arnold featured in several matches but missed Real's 4-0 semi-final defeat to PSG in New Jersey through injury. The England international made his first start in La Liga in Tuesday's 1-0 win over Osasuna. He was substituted in the 68th minute as the entire Santiago Bernabeu rose to their feet to welcome on Dani Carvajal, who was making his first appearance for Los Blancos in almost a year after recovering from an ACL injury. The former Reds fullback took to Instagram after the game to share a message, writing, "Incredible sensation to play in my new home. Excellent way to begin the season with a victory." A series of photos was included in the post. With Carvajal back in action, Alexander-Arnold will now have increased competition for a starting spot. Speaking before the game, pundit Javier Harry suggested the Englishman is nowhere near the level he displayed during his time at Anfield. "I'm waiting for Trent," he told Cadena SER. "He's come to play, but I don't see him in good shape. I've always liked watching the Premier League, watching this player. He's better going forward than in defense, that's more than obvious. He's more of a wing player in a 3-man defense than in a 4-man defense. That's where it's hard for him to get deep. Trent has a month to get sharp, because if he doesn't, Carvajal will eat him alive. But come on, it's a piece of cake. That's what I think based on what I saw at the Club World Cup and the friendly. Trent is nowhere near the Liverpool player. Maybe it's pre-season, but I haven't seen him well.